Hi, I'm Calvin Statue Fanatic, and welcome to another episode of Collecting on a Budget. This is a segment that I decided to start where we can talk about collecting and not breaking the bank. But before we get started, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who watched the first episode of Venom that I did and all of the support that you showed me. And in fact, I'd like to address a couple of the comments that were made. There were two that stood out to me that I want to address in this episode. One, someone wanted to know what was the price point? What did I consider a value price point to call it collecting on a budget? I came up with $200. And the reason why I came up with $200 is if you look at websites like Sideshow and others, you'll notice that from $200, everything seems to jump from that all the way to $400 with very few options in between. But when you look at the $200 price point and below, there are a ton of quality statues and figures out there that are highly collectible coming out of studios like Diamond Direct and the Premier Collection, Gentle Giants, all putting out some really quality items. So that's how I came up with that particular price point. Now, the second thing that somebody mentioned was about pop figures. Someone mentioned that pop figures were also highly collectible and they wouldn't break the bank either. And you are absolutely correct. They are extremely popular and they are extremely collectible from what I can tell. The problem with me talking about pop figures, I have no clue on what I would even talk about because I know nothing about pop figures. In fact, when I go to places and I see the pop figures that are there, I mean, there are so many of them and so many things to choose from. And don't get me wrong, they look cool as hell. And I know that they're highly collectible, but I don't know enough to do a show or talk about them. However, if you're really into pop figures, there is one gentleman, his name is Seth. He's over at MCE, at MCEcentral.com. If you check him out, let me tell you, this guy knows, I think this guy knows everything there is to know about pop figures. So if you really want to stay on top of what's happening in the collecting world as it relates to pop figures, check out what's popping over at MCE Central. And Seth, you got it going on when it comes to pop figures. I couldn't even compete with that. So without further ado, let's get started with this next segment of Collecting on a Budget. And today we're going to take a look at a 1/6 scale figure from the Marvel Premier Collection statues. This is a figure of Moon Knight, which is one of my favorite characters. I kind of consider Moon Knight the Batman of the Marvel Universe. Pretty cool character. But let's get started by taking a look at the box he came in. Came in this box pretty small, not too big. It's limited to 3,000 pieces. And on the box, it basically has pictures of him and a little bio of the character and how he came to be on the back of the box. Not much to it here. And it also came with a letter of authenticity here showing that it's 732 of 3,000. And so that's about all there is with the box. We'll put the box aside and we'll get started with the statue review. Let's take a look at the figure. I think this is a really cool piece. I was really impressed when I opened it. I'm looking at it and he looks really incredible. I'm really curious to know what you guys think about it once you see the review and everything, and if any of you guys have him. He's definitely an impressive piece considering it's a 1/6 scale figure. The whole thing, like I said, is only about 14 inches tall and he's probably only 12 inches tall, and he looks just amazing. Tons of detail. If you just take a look at his cape, for example, I mean, the way that it is creased, the way that it is textured, the way he's clenching it, and you can see all the detail and all those things happening. It's flowing, you can see that. It has movement and motion to it. Looks amazing. The sculpt looks like it's one of those hand sculpted. It doesn't look like it's digitally sculpted, which I really like hand sculpted figures as well. The artist did a really great job on this character. If you look at his arms and his biceps, you can see where he's flexing and you can see the veins popping out of his biceps. Lots of detail on the armor that he's wearing on his arm, or the gauntlets that he's wearing. Again, veins throughout here. You can actually see where the muscles are sculpted. You can see the striations and the strands of his muscles. Really freaking cool piece. On the back of his cape, you can see where the cape is torn and battered. Lots of sculpting and texture to the cape. It gives a really great look for this figure. It's not just some flat painted figure that, you know, smooth all over. It's a lot of detail, a lot of texture, and it's a small scale figure that just amazes you when you look at it. It's pretty awesome. The same with his belt, lots of detail in his belt. His leg armor looks like that he's wearing. His shoes, boots, all lots of texture, creases in them. His face, you can see, is not just a flat. Even sometimes in a comic, you just see a smooth white face with him. But here, there's a lot of creasing and things like that from the mask that he's wearing. And here, you can see his abs, six-pack or what have you. Looks really cool. And then, not to mention the paint application. Now, you've got Moon Knight, and I mean, there's not a whole lot of color going on with him. But the way that artists bring him to life is the shading that they do. And this is really an incredible job of shading, giving it depth, dimension, giving it a really cool look to it, where the dark areas, the light areas, there's this tinge of black and blue with white and gray, all multi-tone, multicolor, almost as if you're looking at him under the moonlight and you're trying to figure out the figure, and based on how the light is playing off of his costume, you see these different shadings. And I think the artist does a great job capturing that, with his eyes being painted with that blue tint to it. Looks really cool as well. Really incredible to get something at the price, and I'll tell you the price in a minute. You'll be surprised, I guess. I think these are some really great ways for people who don't want to get into this whole big statue collecting thing and want to collect some really cool figures that they love and that they like at a reasonable price. This is amazing, and I like this. I intend to keep this for sure. And then the base is some type of Egyptian motif. It's kind of a rooftop scene. I'm not sure what he's standing on top of, but there's a lot of hieroglyphics and Egyptian symbols all throughout this base, which is pretty cool. As far as rating this piece is concerned, you know, we talked a little bit about the boxing, and that was really cool. It added this certificate of authenticity, which was also a really cool touch to it. The box, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. And then as far as the sculpt and design, I mean, I am seriously impressed with this. It's really, really freaking cool. I'm gonna give that a 10 because it is just an amazing sculpt. I would love to see this in a larger scale. It's pretty awesome. And when it comes to the paint application, I mean, 10 for sure. And then when you start talking about the value for this guy, it's $134 for the most part in most places online. Yep, $134. Definitely worth it. Definitely a really cool piece to have in your collection. So that also is a 10 out of 10. And so with that gives this guy a rating of a 9.7, almost a 10 in my opinion. That concludes my brief review of the Moon Knight statue from Marvel Premiere Collection series. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving me. And also, if you want to stay on top of what's happening in the world of collecting, some of the latest news and pop culture, please head over to mcecentral.com. That's Marvel's Collectible and Entertainment. Until next time, peace.